Hey guys, it's Jess, and today I am back with another speed build for the Haven's Hallow save file. If you're new here, this save file is basically a mystery save file, so it's kind of different from your normal save file where you just download it and you get some builds and some new sims. In this save file, you're actually trying to solve a mystery. Which is the disappearance of Corine Sanford from Haven's Hallow, which in my world is Brindleton Bay. And it's a New England inspired town, very sleepy, very cozy. Nothing bad ever happens here. Except for now, Corine Sanford is missing. So that's kind of the general idea of the save file. If you want to hear more, you can watch my past speed builds where I go a little more in depth about it. But anyways, for today's build, I call it like a Teen Hangout on the Docks. Basically, it's a dock build with, a bunch of different shipments, and, it matches the world around it. You can't see it now, but off to the left, there is docks that are very similar to this. So basically that is the idea, and within this lot, there is this kind of hidden space where teens come and hang out, have a little drinks, sit around the fire. It's just like a local hangout spot. So that's the idea of this lot. This is the type of lot I love to play with. I love kind of grungy lots where your teens can come and get into shenanigans. Right now I have it as a generic lot type. I don't know if I'm going to keep it that way. The problem is if I change the lot type, then I have to put the requirements in. Generic lots don't have requirements, but lots like bars or parks have a bunch of requirements, and there's not really a lot in game that I think would suit this lot, which is why I did it as generic. But the other problem is generic lots, sims don't automatically come to them, which really, really annoys me. That's one of the things that annoys me most about the generic lot type in the Sims, because I love that we have a lot type where we can have no requirements. You can put whatever the hell we want on these lots, but then no one goes there except for your sim and the people you invite. And I find that really, really annoying. I wonder if there's a mod that changes that, because if so, I want that in my game regardless of this save file. Now, obviously, if I were to do that, I wouldn't do that for, the actual save file that you download, because I want it to be, CC and mod free. I use the tool mod and better build by, but those don't impact the ability to download. You don't need those in order to download the game. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm considering is maybe changing this. I was thinking bar, but then you have to add a TV, and then there's always a bartender, and it's a teen hangout. You're not going to have an actual bartender there. The whole idea is that you go and have your own sim make drinks. So then I was thinking, well, maybe national park. But I also think sims don't automatically go to national parks either. So park, but then there's a bunch of different requirements you need to make a park. So if you guys have any advice about how to navigate which lot type this lot should be, let me know, because I'd like for sims to automatically come to this lot, but I don't want, things that don't make sense to be on this lot. There's not going to be a swing set on this lot that makes no logical sense. Anyways, this is a fishing supply dock, and as far as storyline goes, this doesn't have too much to do with the storyline of Haven's Hallow and the murder mystery and the case file. It's kind of just a fun lot that you can go to. Of course, there's going to be, clues on this lot and fun stuff like that, but for the most part, not much gameplay as far as the mystery goes on this lot. Characters that are connected to this lot are really only Roger Banks and his wife and 2 daughters, because he works at the docks. And, this isn't like actual gameplay mechanics. It's just in my head, the character I've created, Roger Banks, works at the fishing docks. So maybe if you run into him here, it'd be the most likely place you'd run into him. But it's The Sims. I can't control where non-playable characters go. Anyways, this is a really short video. There's not much to say about the build because I'm just putting down like lobster and crab traps and a bunch of different like shipping containers. And I found this really fun. It brought me back to Seattle. That's where I used to live. And even though this is more a New England type of dock, you don't see quite this in Seattle, there is some similarities to Seattle, I think, personally. And I kind of channeled that. I used to live in Seattle right on the water, so I saw these type of docks all the time. I used to walk past them, used to walk on them. So, it's kind of nostalgic for me, especially since I no longer live there, which I really hate. Seattle's my favorite place I've ever lived. If you saw right there, I was struggling to figure out how to close the bigger menu for Better Build By. This was my first build, I think, in the series where I used Better Build By. I use Better Build By all the time. It's just sometimes buggy, so I haven't used it yet. But for a lot like this where there's so much debug objects and there's just so much objects in general that you have to raise and figure out how to place them, I was like, okay, I need Better Build By in here. I can't just use Tool. But yeah, I'm placing down a bunch of different debug objects. The majority of the slot is debug objects or, the cats and dogs shipping containers, which I think can be debug or cannot be debug. I think I have them as not debug. But it's pretty much just a clutter lot. There's not too much to do physically on the slot. There's a bar that I placed down and a fire pit and a few chairs. But other than that, it's kind of just a lot for decoration. And once I actually get into the game and do all the mystery mechanics, there will be clues and stuff on this lot. But since there's not really much to say gameplay wise about this lot, I think for the rest of the speed build, I'll go into one of the case file mechanics that I've been working on. So if you haven't watched my last videos, the case file basically is the way you navigate the mystery and the clues and all that fun stuff. And I've talked a little bit about it, but I haven't gone into deep detail. So today I'm going into one of the mechanics, which is the interviews. So everyone that I've added into this game, into this world, and also out of world who live in Havens Hollow, has an interview opportunity. Obviously not Corine, because she's missing. But everyone else, you can interview in-game. And sometimes they reveal useful information, sometimes they don't. It really just depends on the person you interview. Like Roger Banks, who works at the fishing supply dock, might not give as useful information as, say, Corine's father, which, I think is pretty obvious. But how I've structured interviews, there are two types of interviews. There's run-in interviews and there's in-home interviews. Run-in interviews can happen at any time as long as you run into the sim in-game. So say you're at these docks, and because Roger Banks works at these docks, you run into him, you can stop him, and you can interview him. And once you talk to him in-game, you can then go into the case file, navigate to his interview, and learn some stuff about Roger and his connection to Corine, and if he has any useful information for you in the case. And that's what you do. That's probably the first step, I guess, in the mystery case file. I mean, you can also do clues first if you want, but I'm pretty sure you need, in order to search for clues, you need a warrant to search the area for clues, and you can't really get a warrant unless you interview people, And you obviously can't do interrogations unless you have a reason to suspect someone. And, I mean, you can find the diary entries before, I guess, doing the interviews. And you can read the articles before doing the interviews. But I do think interviews are a great place to start. And they're kind of more basic, at least the run-in interviews are, because you can't really ask deep, prodding questions because then they're just going to leave. But yeah, those are run-in interviews. Every single character, I think, child or older, can do a run-in interview. I don't do run-in interviews for toddlers and younger because what's the point? They can barely even talk. Anyways, the other type of interview are in-home interviews. And for these, you need a reason to go into their home and interview them, which makes it harder to interview and often gives you more important information. Now, obviously, in-home interviews only work for the characters that actually live in world. So anyone that I've created who is part of Haven's Hollow but is an out-of-world sim, does not live actually in Brindleton Bay, can't have in-home interviews. But everyone who lives in the world can be interviewed both run-in and also in-home. Sometimes multiple times. Some characters have more interview opportunities than others. And these in-home interviews, you have to get, I guess, a warrant. I don't know the exact terminology. I'm working off basic knowledge of, crime TV shows and books. So if you guys know more about this, feel free to tell me what the correct terminology would be. But yes, you need a reason to go in and interview someone in home. And these generally reveal more information and give more access to further investigation. So in-home interviews will often trigger the ability to search a house or bring someone in for interrogation. So the interviews are really helpful, but they probably reveal, I personally think, the least amount of information in the case file, especially run-in interviews. They reveal a bit, but nothing there's nothing much that will make you solve the case. You kind of have to wait a while and do more in-depth stuff like the in-home interviews or the interrogations to really start getting evidence towards what happened to Corine, why she's missing, where she is, if she's dead or alive. So those are the interviews. And interview opportunities, I believe you can only do a few every day just to kind of limit yourself, because if you do everything every Sims day, you'd solve the case really quickly. And I think it's kind of more fun to put a time limit on it and put a limit on how much you can do so that there's more suspense. Because if you could just interview every single person in town on your first day, and then also search the house for clues on the first day, and do all this all on the first day, there's no sense of urgency and the fact that time is running out in order to solve this case. So I think I've limited it to maybe 3 run-in interviews a day and 3 in-home interviews a day, or maybe you can only interview 1 household a day, something like that. Something similar to that. I'm sure I'll have more concrete kind of requirements once I get further and further into the case file. I've yet to write any of the interviews out. I have kind of the structure and how I'm planning it, but this is in the very, very early stages of the case file. The thing that I've kind of worked on thus far is just planning out who has how many interviews and what they might or might not reveal in these interviews, which is another thing. Interviews, since they're more low-key and, there's no reason for them to reveal information they don't want, they can easily stop talking to you, refuse to reveal information, or even just straight up lie, which, is fun. But yeah, that's the general idea for this case file as far as interviews go. And I'm really excited to start writing them and really develop these characters and start kind of planting clues about what happened to Corine, even just in these interviews. So I think that's all I really have to say about the interviews. That's kind of the more in-depth mechanic of the case file as far as those go. Right now, I'm just going through debug and finding the last few objects. This really was a short build. It only took me like 15 minutes to do it. I was kind of in the zone. As I said, I love builds like this. I love kind of grungy, fun builds. I think I even put, what is it called? Like lot traits, the negative ones. I did like grungy and creepy crawly, so you can have negative side effects from being on this lot, because it is a fishing dock. It's a little grimy. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Havens Hallow speed, build, save file, whatever I'm calling it. And let me know if you want to know more about some of the other case file mechanics, like articles and interrogations and diary entries. And as far as that goes, this is the last build that's physically on the docks in game. The next ones will be next to the docks, and we'll be kind of finishing out the next two community lots in this area. I think I've called it Tidewater Street. And thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you guys in the next feed build. Bye!